Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast. It's your host, Kaylee here. And today we're going to talk about, our industry. And I'd like to begin by stating for the record, for those of us who are lucky enough to call ourselves in service of the aesthetic industry, I wholeheartedly believe that this is the best place on planet Earth. The steady convergence of aesthetics with the $1.4 trillion wellness space only reinforces my optimism and excitement for real possibilities in the future. And I've had the good fortune of working in many different facets of the space, from skincare to device sales, to sales management, to running my own practice, to owning a growing leadership coaching business and employing other high growth women in the space. What a blessing to be so immersed in dynamic perspectives from all sides of this ecosystem. It's been exciting to watch the industry evolve over the past 12 years. And I'm going to sound like my dad right now. Back in my day when we used to walk barefoot uphill in the snow to get to school, kidding. But seriously, when I started in sales, we didn't have the technology and luxuries we have today to gain access to our clients. I remember using MapQuest and printing out my routing for the day on my laptop because there was no phone navigation. Anyone feel me there? It's literally insane to think about what kind of accessibility there is now to get in front of our clients, to communicate, and to learn all the ins and outs about a person before we have even met them. I can literally open an app on my phone, type someone's name, creep around on their curated page in which they've intentionally posted information about themselves, study them and their philosophies, get to know their problems, and then leave them a personal voice message directly about how I have solutions for them without them even ever giving me their phone number or really even permission to approach them. And it goes both ways. Anyone can create a personal brand for themselves based on how they want people to perceive them. And there's no authenticity police or fact checkers, believe it or not. But back in the day when resumes were the only way to promote yourself and your experience, it was a big no-no to exaggerate your value. Today with social media, that happens all the damn time. And what's more, social media is a vibrating amplifier for communication because one message can instantly scale to millions of people. Half the time I love this fact, and half the time I abhor it. I remember complaining to my husband one day that I wanted to get off social media. And he said, well, just do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would say that. I run an online business. Going off social media would be like disappearing off of the planet Earth. Hence the love-hate. We depend on social media to feel heard, connected, and validated. But the fact that we need it, well, that makes me feel a little bit out of control and vulnerable, to be honest. It's such a messed up thing. And I don't think I'm alone. In fact, I know I'm not. And dotting the line to our industry, social media and digital commerce has literally been the conduit to generating multi-millions of dollars for providers and colleagues in our space, me included. And I've discussed influencer marketing in the past. You can head back to episode number 87 for that, working with influencers. But what if you are the influencer? And what even makes providers in our industry influential? I think that's quite literally $1 million question, because there's a spectrum of opinions about whether our industry as a whole is justly glamorizing the right people, or if simply big pharma politics are at play. So there was a recent debate about provider alliances with injectable companies. Essentially, the argument was, do pharma companies dictate or influence injectors to align with them by designating them as trainers? and do volume discounts sway injectors to select limited product lines and limit their relationships to one or maybe two manufacturers. The conversation went on to suggest that manufacturers, aka big pharma and device companies, are driving their agenda through providers by using them as quote unquote influencers, essentially. In fact, some companies pay direct affiliate commissions for peer-to-peer recommendations for their products. Because of this, what we begin to see are some of the same faces repping companies on stage, at conferences, on social media, etc. So I'm curious, what's your perspective? Do you believe there's a popularity contest in our industry, or is thought leadership fair game? So for this week's episode, I felt compelled to open up this discussion with you by sharing some observations and experiences that defend both sides of the debate. Is the aesthetic industry just a big popularity contest or not? I often hear comments like, 1, it's frustrating that the same experts are teaching at every aesthetic conference. 2, I don't believe the right people are being recognized for their brilliance in our industry. 3, I'm more experienced, knowledgeable, or articulate at a specific topic than someone speaking on stage, but I don't want to play the popularity game to get podium time. Or 4, I was underwhelmed by that quote unquote key opinion leader. And if I'm honest, I probably said some version of each of these statements to myself at one point in time, because look, it's human nature to desire recognition for the work we do. But at what point are these comments based out of legitimacy? And at what point is admiration or even envy skewing these statements? So I want to unpack this little squabble here. So let's talk about argument side A. The aesthetic industry is just a big popularity contest. Folks in this camp claim that it really doesn't matter how brilliant you are at your craft, that if you aren't playing politics, you're not likely to develop exposure as a thought leader. And I can understand this viewpoint. When I was working in industry, one of my roles was to develop KOLs, meaning I would identify young talent, ambitious, it factor providers who were looking for opportunities to get more brand exposure, to conduct small format studies, to speak on stage, to take calls from colleagues and basically brag on our company. I would take them to dinner and provide no charge consumables in exchange for them to allow our reps to list them as a happy and successful center of excellence. In fact, today there are influencers in our space that are widely known as industry celebrities who got their start by being planted in a sales event conference room, posing as an attendee who would undercover spew out compliments about their experiences with our company's devices, team, and experience. And things have not changed. There's absolutely a value exchange that takes place in a variety of ways between corporations and provider owners. I've had clients as recent as last month been offered incentives for just mentioning a specific product on stage in their non-clinical, non-CME talk. Just a suggestive reference during Q&A for a couple $1,000s, no harm, no foul. And over the course of the past 2 years, some big conference organizers have moved from inviting and paying dynamic speakers to take stage to educate their paying audience to instead inviting industry-sponsored only speakers. In fact, I spoke for a conference in 2020 at no charge to gain some visibility and exposure. This was a strategic move for me. To then having my abstracts accepted on contingency in 2021 for a $5,000 fee, meaning I pay them to speak. I am not going to name the name of the conference, but let's just say I won't be there this year or ever again because I refuse to play that game. I just strongly believe that a paying conference attendee deserves to hear from unbiased, creative, and independent thinkers who aren't pushing an agenda for someone else. Other points to this side of the story are that Instagram followers, celebrity, and presence weighs heavily on a company's decision to endorse and support a provider's thought leadership. And I believe this is fact. There are Insta-famous injectors out there who get a ton of notoriety because of their Instagram handle. And what's hilarious is going to a conference and seeing these Insta idols in person, knowing their IG handle, but not even their actual name. That's kind of a mind game for sure. Companies, industry, conference organizers, they all have their favorites. Also true. And I get this side of the debate. On the other hand, there's a strong counter argument for our folks in Camp B. Let's talk about the case that the aesthetic industry is not a popularity contest. The thought leaders who are omnipresent command owning recognition. Lucky for me, I also get to work with industry leaders and influencers intimately as a leadership coach for high growth women in our space. So I can relate to them as well. Their primary rebuttal is that influencers show up, they get out of their comfort zone, and they truly do influence ideology and behaviors of others. They believe that influence is earned, and authentic influence is cultivated through expression of an independent philosophy, viewpoint, or perspective. So oftentimes companies come to them to celebrate, to acknowledge, and to reinvest in them for their adoption of their products. And they want to reward them with exposure to share their experiences with colleagues. Companies actually learn a lot about how to position, market, and innovate with their own products through the lived experiences of their clients. So let's just say you were a top user of a specific skincare line as an example. Wouldn't it just make good business sense for the company to come to you and ask you about your experiences, to lean in with curiosity and openness to improvement, to discover off-label and combination therapy uses that you've experimented with that would work? And doesn't this reinforce that if you are finding clinical and financial success with their skincare products, that they would want to make sure that the rest of their customers learn these techniques and become aware of the potential they too have as it relates to utilization of their products and how their products fit into the service mix of their target clientele? And the next point to this side of the debate is that influencers create a multiplier effect in their ecosystem, meaning that the recommendations they make generate brand awareness, instant adoption, and ongoing trust in them and the brands they endorse. Why in the world wouldn't someone who has a platform to stand on monetize their impact while serving others with the best recommendations and tips? And finally, the quickest way to get your name out there is to leverage the deep pockets and political prowess of companies in our space. Many companies will pay big dollars for sponsorship opportunities at conferences. That include booth space, workshop presentations, cocktail parties, private roundtables, and expert podium time. They are craving new and exciting faces to evangelize their products and their company. And if you're looking to make your brand a household name, partners with influence can help you advance your mutual agendas. So, leader, what are your thoughts on all of this? There really are valid points to defend each of these perspectives. And that's the beauty of exploring different opinions from an unbiased viewpoint, or at least an open-minded or curious one. We all have so much to learn from each other, and holding the space to understand one another's intentions is helpful for us to stay aware of where we stand and aligned with our own core value system. And here are my thoughts. In my opinion, there's just a deepening disconnect through social media. As much as we want to feel connected there, there's a political and social discord that's illuminated on Instagram. And I think it's valuable to voice your own concern about something if you don't agree with it, but also take the time to hear others out if you want to be heard yourself. You might get triggered by something for a reason. Perhaps it's something that you've worked hard not to be a part of, or maybe that trigger represents something you wish you had for yourself. Either way, it's important to think about why you feel that way. At the end of the day, success is so individual, and being recognized for the work you do may have nothing to do with popularity, notoriety, or industry recognition. It could just be about the work you do day in and day out, and that's incredible. This past month, I was recognized by Forbes as one of the top 10 inspiring women leaders to watch in 2023. And of course, that's such an honor. But to be honest, I had a lot of conflicting feelings about that. Whether I received that recognition or not, the work I do, the impact I make, it doesn't change whatsoever. Just because Forbes decided I was worthy of that recognition doesn't make a difference for the people I work with or the mission I'm on. It feels good, it's validating, but it's not a goal. In fact, as my business has grown, I've never had to become more intentional about getting clear on my goals and staying focused on them. And that's not been easy because I know the levers to push to grow financially. This is the success trap. I know how to make money and I'm proud of the work we do. But the reality is I've had to sacrifice a lot of things that I love. I'm at a point in my life where I'm questioning if popularity is worth that. I'd love to golf more, to spend more time decorating my home and having lunch with my girlfriends. And I think the point is that success is truly subjective and variable and changing. When I think about scaling, it isn't always up. Sometimes there's seasons of scaling back. My boys are 11 and 14. To think my baby will be out of the house in 4 years, it's a terrifying thought, to say the least. And my parents are in their 70s. My dad will be 77 this year, and they need me more than ever. But conference organizers, companies, industry partners, they aren't going to pump the brakes just because my kids are growing up. That's up to me. Ultimately, if your goal is to earn exposure, to magnify your influence, and to multiply your impact, I think it's wise to take advantage of opportunities that are in alignment with your brand, your core values, and your goals without question. Just don't lose your voice. Develop your own talk. Stand for something. Be intellectually disruptive. If you're doing it for the right reasons, your voice will not get whitewashed inside a very sexy, very stimulating industry with deep pockets. Instead, your voice will amplify. Okay, leader, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Please send me a DM. And as always, screenshot and share this episode. If you found value from this podcast and would like to help more of our industry think more critically about who and how experts are recognized. Thanks for tuning in this week, and I will chat with you first thing next Monday morning. Wait, before you go, if you're vibing with this conversation and want to join me on my mission to help 1,000 inspiring and intentional women cross the next $1 million milestone in their business this year, or maybe you want to become one of them, head over to Facebook and join our free community, the Fierce Factor Society. Over there, we are taking this conversation to an elevated level. Get access to resource guides, podcast supplements, and guideposts, direct communication with me and my expert team, and of course, a society of fierce women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to Facebook and search up the Fierce Factor Society. See you there, goddess.